So this composite primary key, actually we should discuss while discussing, primary key constraint. Okay, but yesterday, someone is asked some doubt, so they're checking this, the primary these adventure box tables. So they're getting some doubt. So that's the reason I'm trying to explain about this composite primary key. Yeah. So usually for a table we can create only one primary key, correct? But there is a one chance, or we can create, if at all we have more number of columns, we can create primary key on top of multiple columns at a time. So meaning, so yesterday I gave an example to them. So the same example I'm just taking. So let's say you are joining into a company, but it's not a permanent position. So there is something called contract position. Okay, we do have C2H hire. Okay, so now that is also called as payroll company, parent company. Okay, and for an example, the parent company, if it is ABC, and your client, let's say Wipro. So if you're directly working for Wipro, no, so that is permanent position. But when you're working for ABC, okay, and your client is Wipro, so this is contractual, job actually. Okay. Now the employee, I mean, when you're joining into ABC, right? There also you're having an employee ID. Okay, and let's say for Wipro you are working, right? So there will be a client actually. Okay, and you will be also having a client ID. Okay, because under ABC there are so many clients like Wipro, TCS. Okay, and you can say Tech Mahindra, Infi. Okay, Infosys. Okay, now sometime maybe 1 year you'll be working for Wipro and another year working for TCS. Okay, whenever you're working for any different clients, right? So then every time your client ID might change. Okay, so let's say you are one of the employee and you're working for Wipro, let's say, and your client ID will be some 1001. Okay, and there are one more employee in the same ABC company is working, and let's say he is working for a TCS client. Yeah, 2 and 3003, and fourth employee he is working for 1004. Okay, something like this. Now this is a one table which I am maintaining, basically like employee underscore client details, something like that. Yeah, and also I'm just maintaining the employees sal details in a separate table. Employee ID, employee salary, and let's say salary month. Okay, which month it is. Let's say first employee, same employee, and the salary will be, let's say, 10,000. And this is Jan, Feb, March, and here 25,000, and same salary. For an example, March, April, June, July. Okay, so based upon this employee ID, I'm maintaining a salaries in a different table, and I do have a one more table called client details, guys. So for an example, client ID. Okay, and under that client, what are all the projects you're working, and duration of the project. Let's say tenure. Okay, so let's say 1001. The project name you're working for, let's say A project, or you can say P1, and tenure will be 1 year. Now same person can work, okay, in a different project also, right? P2, right? So the tenure will be 2. Correct now? See, under Wipro, I can work for 2 projects, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then 1002, and he is working for project 3, let's say, or he can work for project 1 also, right? 2 persons can work on same project also.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So let's say 3 and 1003. Let's say he worked on P1 only and tenure will be 1. And 1004. So let's say he's not yet assigned to any project, and I am not having any details here. Okay. Now in this case, okay. So how do we provide a primary foreign relationship? Because this is a one particular table. This is consider employee underscore client info details. Okay, and his salary. And this is project info. Now, how do you provide a relationship here? Tell me. See, this is single table, right? Now here, if I keep a primary key, yes, obviously I can give a relationship to this column, correct?
Yes, sir.
Foreign key. But what about this? I cannot keep one more primary key over here, no?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I cannot relate to this, right? In such a case.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, in these cases, right? Okay. So basically here we have a 2 identifications, correct?
Correct.
So in these cases, what Microsoft has did is, so instead of creating one primary key in a table, I mean one primary key on a single column, right? So we can create primary key on 2 columns actually. Okay, the syntax will be like this. First, you can create the table, create table, and employee underscore client info and employee ID integer, comma CID integer. Okay, and comma at the last, what you need to do is, see, primary key can keep in this way also. At the end, you can keep primary key of, okay, what and all the columns you want, I mean on top of what and all the columns you want to keep this primary key, right? You can simply mention. Let me just text. Yeah, can you see this? Create table, table name, employee ID on first column and data type, on second column data type, and the primary foreign keys you can assign like this also. So instead of keeping over here, right? Okay, so at the end you can put comma after all the columns, and you can mention primary key of employee ID comma CID. Okay, this is possible, and if you want, I'll just show you here. Can you see? The primary key has been built on top of EAD and CAD, and I can show you how it could be. And this is called as composite primary key. Not only 2 columns, more than on top of 3 columns also we can do that. Yeah, you can see here keys. Okay, so it has been built on employee and client both. Can you see? Primary key is there on both the columns now, correct?
Yes.
One single primary key, because in a table only one primary key, right?
Yes, sir.
And both will not allow any null values. The properties remains same actually. Okay, clear? Now let me insert something into this table. start from this. Can you see on what basis it is sorting now?
Primary key.
Employee ID, sir.
Employee ID. Why employee ID? Why not CID? Because whichever column you will mention first. Okay. On basis on that column, it will sort. Okay. Not on both. But primary key will be there on both. Okay. So now if I try to enter the same record again, let's see what will happen. See, now it's throwing an error. Correct. So here the duplicate means, okay, the duplicate means the same row. It depends on two columns now, not single column. Okay. So which means if the same row, if you are trying to enter now, then this is called as a duplicate record, guys. Okay. If I try to enter 1005, no, it's not a duplicate because employee ID is same, but client ID is different, na?
Yes.
Okay. In such a case, it's not a duplicate because the duplicate is depending on both the columns. If you want, I can show you. So the same employee ID, but a different client ID I'm entering. See, now it's allowing. If I go and execute, can you see?
Yes.
Understand?
Yes.
The duplicate is depending on both the columns, not single column, and it won't allow nulls. Okay, so even if you enter for single column or multiple columns, it won't allow. So see, because in both the columns it is not null, right? That's why. Okay, so now I have primary key on both the columns, right? So for this table, you can use this column as a primary format relationship. For this table, you can take this column as a primary format relationship. Because anyway, primary key is there on both the columns, correct?
Yeah.
So this is called as composite primary key, and this case is available in our adventure works tables actually. Okay, so you can just search some of the tables in two columns. Will be having same primary key, and using that they are giving a relationship to other tables actually. Yes. Clear? Any questions?
Sir, by using two primary keys, it shuffles the data.
No, it's not two primary keys. One primary key and multiple columns it is. I did not mention multiple primary keys here, na?
Okay.
Single primary key and multiple columns. That too, the sorting will always happen on first column, whichever column you're keeping the first column. If suppose if you keep CAD comma EAD here, okay, primary key will be there on both, but the sorting will happen on based on single column only. Okay.
For both columns, the data type should be same or no?
I'm sorry.
For both
It can
columns,
be different. It can be different. No issues actually.
Maybe.
Okay. But usually we'll keep primary format relationship on top of integers, right?
Yes, sir.
So make sure it should be integers. It's a best practice.
Regarding syntax, while writing syntax, right, is there any way to write like as like earlier syntaxes?
No, it's not possible actually because yeah, if you keep primary key here and there, then it will be like two primary keys, no?
Correct.
If you keep primary key here and here, it will consider as a two primary keys and it won't allow. Okay. The only way is after all the columns you need to mention the primary key. Okay. Even for earlier case also you can mention this primary key of at the end of the columns, your column name.
Okay.
But make a habit of using primary key in the top only with respect to column so that we can easily understand what column having which constraint. Okay. Only for composite, so you can use this. Understand? Yeah. On top of more than two columns also we can apply a composite. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, then you can write down. Composite primary key, side heading. Yeah. Usually we cannot create two primary keys in a table. Usually you cannot create two primary keys in a table, but we can create one primary key on multiple columns in a table. We can create one single primary key on multiple columns. And this is known as composite primary key. And this is known as composite primary key. Please write down this syntax. Done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For
Then,
how many columns you can keep a primary key?
there is no restriction like that actually. You can create more than two. Okay. But usually I have seen they had put only two actually at a time. Okay, so you can just take down this example also. Please mute. Next. Finished?
Yes, sir.
It's very important for interview point of view. Okay.
Sir, in employee client info table, why you put duplicate values? This.
This one,
Uh,
it's because maybe same person can work for other client also, right? Under same payroll. There can be a chance actually. Okay.
okay.
And this is not a duplicate. Why? Because the duplicate is depending on both the columns now, not only single column.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. No, this one, sir. 11001. This is first one also. No? First.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not possible actually. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It will throw us an error when you try to insert it. Okay.
Okay.
But this case is possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, this composite
But in
key,
salary,
sir,
Mhm.
while creating new table only it possible, or already existing table also we can use?
Already existing table also possible actually. So while creating alter table name, add constraint name, primary key of 2 column names you can mention there. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Would not be null values.
Sorry, it won't allow nulls because both the columns are become as not null now, correct?
Like I'm telling, like when he's inserting a primary key, foreign key, there should not be null values in the table.
Foreign key we can have. Primary
Sorry,
key we should.
these primary keys. Sorry for this case.
Primary key there should not be any nulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sir, in salary table, we should mention client ID as well, right?
No, not required
Otherwise,
because
how-
on the same salary, let's say they're working. Okay, in such a case you can keep like this. If you want, maybe whenever you are working for a different client and your salary getting changed, right? In such a case, your employee also will come over here. I mean, a client ID. Then 2 foreign keys, right? Understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. We can have, see, whatever, I mean, for different situations, you can take, single foreign key or multiple foreign keys also. It's your wish.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll switch to the another concept. There is, as I said, there is a one more temporary object like your local temporary table and global temporary table. Okay, so the name of that object would be table variable. Write down side heading. As like a local and global, this is one of the temporary object, guys. Temporary object. Okay, so object nothing but what? It's kind of a table which stores these structures and data.
Okay.
Okay, so where variable will store only single scalar value, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
your table variable will store columns and rows.
Yes.
Okay, now these also kind of a variable, right? So the define, while you're defining this table, right, you should not use create statement. You should use the declare statement. Okay, and while creating a table, what is the syntax? Create table, table name will come, correct?
Correct.
But here that syntax will be declare at the rate of table name. First table name will come, and before that one at the rate will come, and then table name will come. It's opposite. Okay, create table name, table name, right? But here declare table name, then table. But before that one at the rate should come. And there is no local and global variables here. Okay, only single at rate you need to mention. Okay, and open brace, and the columns data types. Okay, so this is the syntax case. So for an example, column 1 data type, and then column 2 data type likewise. Don't write, just see. Now for an example, declare at the rate of any table we can take. Let's say audit. Okay. And table is a keyword, open brace, employee ID integer. Okay. Audit date. Let's say date data type. And you can put any remarks. And I'll just say varchar of 100. Okay, consider that there are 3 columns in this. Yeah. And while inserting the data, insert into your table name, it should be start with @ now. And the only difference between your main table or template table and this table is just scope will be different. Okay, and the storage also different actually. Okay, so values, but all the inserts, deletes, everything remains same. So one, let's say, so as I said, if I want to provide a today's date to this column, what is the function I said? Remember?
Get date.
Get date. Okay. This is a system defined function, guys. Okay, so this will took your today's date. Okay, today's date means whatever you have set up in your PC, okay, or your laptop, that it will consider as a today's date. Okay. Yeah, and then comma remarks. Let's say as of now not applicable for first employee. And now you see, when I'm trying to insert this data into a table variable, it's not taking, because what I said yesterday,
Declare within the
Declare and you have
yes,
to
from
execute
declare to here you have to execute at it. When you execute, where exactly it will store?
in hard RAM memory.
Yes, in the memory. Okay, whatever you are storing the data, either whether it is a table or a variable, right? So it will store it under a RAM only. Okay, and even if you want to see the data in the table, again what you need to do, you have to execute the entire statements. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All the bunch of queries, so you need to execute in a single execution, then only you can see the data, guys. Okay, now one thing here is all the DDL commands are there, right? Create, alter, drop, truncate. Okay, all these commands we cannot apply on these table variables. See, we are not using create now. Correct?
Yes.
And alter also, it's not possible here. Okay, why? Because this table is not a physical table, guys. So physical means it should exist in the MDF, correct? But it is not existing physically, right? It is there in the memory. So that's the reason you cannot alter it or you cannot truncate it. Getting it? And even you cannot drop it also. Okay,
Yes,
manually you cannot drop it. So what is the scope of this table variable?
Within the single batch execution.
Yeah, within the execution. Okay, and the
Execution.
scope of this table will exist till that execution, correct? After the execution, it's gone, because see, when I'm executing multiple times, nothing is happening, right? It is not throwing any error saying that the table is already exist, correct?
Yes.
So that's why the scope of this table variable would be till that execution only. After the execution, it's gone. So you no need to drop it manually. See, even if you try to drop it, let's see what will happen. Drop table, your table name. And if you go and execute, see what will happen. Here it is throwing an error. Okay. You cannot apply any of the DDL commands here. It's not possible because the reason behind that is this phase table is not physically exist.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. And also all the DML commands you can perform. Insert you can perform, delete, and update. All these things you can perform. There is no problem. Okay. You see, if I go and delete something in this table, delete from my order table name, now nothing will be there in your table, right? One row will insert, one row will delete, and when you do select stars from the table, nothing will be there. So which means we can perform the delete operation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the interview, what they used to do now, they will be giving all the declare statements. In between, they will create normal tables, I mean physical tables. Let's say some temp and id integer, and in between they will write something like drop command. And so many syntaxes they will write actually. Okay. Now they'll just ask us to check like whether this all the statements are correct or not. Okay. So what we used to do, we'll just see whether the syntax correct or not correct. Yeah, but actually this statement is wrong, correct? Drop statement.
This drop is wrong.
Because we cannot apply drop on top of a table.
Yes, sir. Create also.
So this is very simple. Okay, very simple technique to identify. But what people used to do generally is they will just see the syntaxes, whether the syntax is correct or not. They won't check whether we can perform a drop or not, correct? Because see, in between they're giving a physical table also, correct? Yeah, they'll give, to make you confused, right? They will create a physical table here, and they will do inserts on top of the same table, and at last they will do some dropping, then they will try to select. Yes. So this is where you need to be careful actually. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a wrong statement actually, because we cannot perform
DDL.
yeah I mean drop command on top of a table variable. See, usually it has to show that red color symbol here when you perform create, alter, delete. Sorry, when you perform alter, drop, this create and all. Okay, but sometimes in the face-to-face interviews they will write the statements in the paper. There it won't show any errors, right, for us.
Yes.
Okay. Correct. Yeah. So you just need to very careful with these statements when you're performing on top of this table variables. Okay. Yeah. And this is a bunch of execution, and the memory location, the storage location would be it would be RAM only, memory only. Okay. Understand?
Sir, after get date, always we have to use that, sir. Get date after symbol.
Yes. This is a parameters actually we should pass inside it, but for get date it is not required, and it is mandatory to pass this parenthesis. We should not keep inside anything, but you need to simply keep that parenthesis. It's mandatory. Okay. Why it's mandatory? When we will discuss this user defined functions, you'll come to know.
Sir, for only get date we have to use that, sir.
There are so many other functions also will come. I think even for scope identity will also will come, right?
Yes, sir.
Scope underscore identity also will put this open and close brace, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, there are some functions actually. Okay. Yeah. Could you please write down this? Just declare, insert, and delete, and perform this select also. And this drop command, you can write it and you can make it like a wrong state. Okay.
Sir, any abbreviation for this table variable?
Abbreviation it's not required, but we'll write the storage location, what is the scope, everything in at the end in the note.
Okay.
Done. Okay, make a note and write down, please. First point. First point. The scope of table variable will be exist the scope of table variable will exist till that execution only. Till that execution only. The storage location of table variable will be RAM as well as temp DB. Okay. See, initially it will be RAM and temp DB also will get involved, guys. I'll explain to you that. Okay, but write down this point as of now. RAM as well as temp DB. Okay. Now third point. We cannot perform DDL commands on top of table variable. On top of table variable. Next, we cannot provide FK relationship. Primary key, check constants, everything can be mentioned here. No problem with that. But foreign key will not allow here also. We cannot provide foreign key relationships between the table variables. Between the table variables. All the table variable statements should execute in single batch. All the table variable statements should execute in single batch. Done? Done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now there is a very important question, guys. Okay. I think 70 to 80% of the interviews they'll ask this question: difference between the temporary table and table variable. Okay. I'll tell you few points regarding this temporary table variable differences, and Ramesh will explain to you few more points. Okay.
Sir.
Yeah, because there are a lot of understanding required, like execution plans, all those stuff to understand the difference between temporary table and table variable. I'll give you few points from my end, and whenever he'll explain that, right, the execution plans and all, he'll explain to you in deeply. Okay, what is the main difference between this temp and table variable? Okay, it's a very famous question, guys. Okay, very important this is. Yeah, if you go for 10 interviews, I think 8 to 9 interviews they'll ask this question. Write down temporary table and table variable. One side temporary table, other side will be table variable. Okay, first difference: temporary tables will mention with hash keyword or pound keyword. Temporary tables will mention with hash keyword or pound keyword.
Or what,
Okay.
sir?
Sorry,
Hash keyword or
pound, POUND, pound keyword before the table name. Next.
Repeat once from the beginning.
Yeah, can someone repeat, please? In
Temp
temporary
table
tables, we'll
mention
mention
with
hash or
hash
pound
keyword
keyword before the
or-
table name. Okay, in table variables, write down. In case of table variables, we'll mention @ before the table name. In case of table variable, we'll mention @ before the table name. Okay. Next, in temporary tables, the scope of temporary table will exist the scope of temporary table will exist until we close the session. The scope of temporary table will exist the scope of temporary table will exist until we close the session. Done? Scope of temporary table will exist until we close the session. Next, in table variable, the scope of table variable will exist scope of table variable will exist until the execution. Okay, finished. Next, on top of temporary tables, we can apply all the comments. On top of temporary tables, we can apply all the comments. On top of temporary tables, we can apply all the comments. Next, on top of table variables, on top of table variables, we cannot perform DDL commands. We cannot perform DDL commands. Okay. And next point in temporary tables. The temporary tables statements can execute individually. The temporary table statement should execute individually. The temporary table statement can execute individually. The temporary table statement can execute individually or bulk. Correct? If you want, we can execute separately, or entire statements also we can execute, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. In case of table variables,
Altogether.
in case of table variables, in case of table variables, all the statements which are belongs to all the statements which are belongs to table variable, which are belongs to table variable should get execute in single batch only. In single batch only. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, one more point you can write, I'll explain to you. One more point in temporary tables. In case of storing large amount of data, we'll prefer temporary tables. In case of large amount of data, in case of storing large amount of data, we'll prefer temporary tables. We'll prefer temporary tables. In case of large amount of data, sorry, go to the table variable. Go to the table variable. In case of small amount of data, or in case of storing small amount of data, in case of storing small amount of data, we'll go for table variable. In case of storing small amount of data, we'll go for table variable. Okay. Yeah, just see this now small example. Why temporary tables are required to store large amount of data, and small amount of data will go for table variable. Okay, the reason, there are so many reasons actually. I'll explain to you one or two, and then Ramesh will explain to you remaining points. Yeah. So for temporary tables, the destination location is TempDB, correct?
Yes.
And for table variable, the memory, the memory will be the storage location, memory, or we can say RAM also, correct?
Yes, sir.
Or RAM. Okay, so for an example, I'm just giving a small example. I'm storing some 500 1 lakh rows, let's say. Okay, I'm trying to load 1 lakh rows into my temporary table. Okay, and where exactly it will go and sit?
MDB.
All the 1 lakh rows will go and sit under TempDB, correct?
Yes.
And when you do select star from the table, obviously it will retrieve from the TempDB only. Yeah. So
Yes.
whereas in the table variable, when you go and insert some 1 lakh rows, for an example, okay. So how much memory will be? Usually our RAM memory will be 4 GB or 8 GB, 16 GB, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, will it allocate all the memory to store the table variable?
No, sir.
Definitely no. Okay.
No, sir.
Because the RAM is the main, mediator, which will do all the operations in your system, correct?
Correct.
So it cannot allocate entire memory to store this data. So what it will do is it will allocate some memory. Okay, some means we cannot predict, guys. Okay, it depends actually. Depends on memory available. It will allocate to the table variable actually. Okay, so just assume that there is a 4 GB RAM in our system.
Okay.
And out of which it has been allocated for us is, let's say, some 100 MB. Yeah, okay. Now, when I am trying to insert 1 lakh rows, okay, just assume that there are so many columns in this. Okay, some some 500 columns are there. Yeah, and I'm just storing 1 lakh rows. Okay. Now, this 1 lakh rows is exceeding more than 100 MB. To storing this 1 lakh rows, right? Okay, whatever RAM is allocating memory, right? That 100 MB is not sufficient for me, because to store this data, I required, let's say, at least some 250 MB of memory. Just assume that, okay? In that case, it cannot fit all the rows into my RAM, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, yes, sir.
In such a case, what SQL Server will do is it will push the remaining data into TempDB again. Understand?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the reason I said this point. The storage location of table variable will be RAM as well as TempDB. Okay. So if the data is exceeding, right, whatever we expected, more than that, if you are getting, then it will push that data, the remaining data into the TempDB. 100 MB of data will be there in this RAM, and the remaining data will be pushed into the TempDB, guys. Now, whenever we request the data, select star from that table variable within the execution. So it has to fetch from where?
Both MDB and
Yes.
memory, sir.
It has to fetch from two different destinations, correct?
Yes, sir.
So one from the memory and one from the TempDB. So now you tell me, fetching from one location is easy, fetching from two different locations are easy.
Fetching from one location.
Yeah, getting the data from one location is very easy, right? Okay, so that's the case. So I said that, what is the last point I said? In case of storing large amount of data, which one is better?
Temporary table.
Temporary tables are better actually. Okay. Now, in case of small amount of data, I said table variable, right? The reason behind that is, let's say I'm storing some 100 rows. And there are some 1 or 2 columns, or maybe 4 or 5 columns, or 10 columns also you can issues. Now, all those 100 rows are storing in where?
RAM, sir. Memory.
Memory, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all the 100 rows will be stored in memory only. Whereas in this case,
In TempDB.
TempDB, all the 100 rows will be placed under TempDB. Now, between your temporary table and TempDB, even in earlier case, or maybe 1 lakh rows case and 100 rows case, between your temporary tables and TempDB, who is the mediator? RAM only, right?
Yes, sir.
To get whatever you want, RAM has to work in between, correct?
Yes, sir.
But in this case, RAM itself having the data in case of 100 rows.
Yes, sir.
Correct? So do I need to go to TempDB?
No, sir.
Not required. Directly I can get it from RAM, right? So which one will be better in case of smaller amount of data?
Table variable.
Table variable. That's what I said there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one reason, guys. Any doubts in this?
No, clear.
Anyone?
Sir, in case of table variable,
Mm-hmm.
it will only take in inside the execution time only, but
Yes.
when it will you make use of TempDB, so
Yeah, that's what.
more data
Within the execution only, if it is not able to fit that inserted data into our memory, right? In the same case, it will push it into your TempDB, and within the execution, when you do a select star from the table variable, right? Then it will fetch from memory and TempDB both. Everything will happen within the execution only. Okay. See, it will make use of TempDB, and you cannot see that actually, because after the execution, nothing will be there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, this process will happen backend, right?
Yes, exactly. See, whatever I gave this example is just to understand, okay, what exactly will happen. And memory allocation, it depends on the memory and time. Everything will depends actually. Okay. So I gave this is a small example. Yeah. And there is a one more reason, guys. One more reason. The estimations will be proper in temporary tables, but it will be not proper in the table variable. What is meant by estimation? Okay, there are so many factors we need to consider, but to make it very, very simple, Ramesh will explain to you in deep, but to make it very, very simple, see, like, when you store some data in a table, in case of TempDB, and to retrieve some information from the table, so your CPU, everything will get involved, correct?
Yes, correct.
Am I correct, guys?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So estimations means there are so many factors will come: CPU, input output cost, and subtree cost. Okay. So and your memory, everything will be is a factors actually. Okay. But just consider as of now CPU. Okay, CPU cost. Okay. Now, in case of temporary tables, the estimations will be proper. Why? Because how many rows are there, how many I have to retrieve, everything SQL Server knows it actually. So based upon to retrieve 1 lakh rows, right? It can arrange the CPU cost. Okay, so whatever it is required for 1 lakh rows, so it can fetch easily. But whereas in the table variable, the estimations will be not proper, guys. Okay. Reason behind that is usually a variable can store how many rows, how many values. Usually
One only.
a variable can store a single value, correct?
Single value.
But
Yes, sir.
whereas a table variable can store a number of rows, correct?
Yes, sir.
So whenever you are inserting 1,000 rows or 1 lakh rows or 10 lakh rows into table variable, SQL server will understand this is a variable, guys. Okay.
Yes, sir.
SQL server will understand it's a variable, and usually variable will store no, see, variable will store a single value, right? Okay. Now what SQL server will do is it will grant the CPU cost or that input output or subtree cost only to fetch the single row. Okay. So for single row, how much memory it is required to fetch, right? It will allocate only that memory. But how many actual number of rows present in our table? 1 lakh rows. Correct? If for an example, to construct an house, okay, I know I require 10 people. Okay. Yes. So that analyzation will be proper in this case of temporary table. Okay, the SQL server can allocate 10 people to build that house, and it can be faster, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. But in this case of table variable, we know it 10 people are required to finish it in 6 months. But SQL server, what it will do is it will allocate only one person. Why? Because it will assume like it's a variable.
Very.
Okay, and it will allocate only for a single row, guys.
Yes, sir.
For to fetch the single row, how much memory and CPU cost, everything it is required, right? It will allocate only that much cost and all. In such a case, right, to fetch 1 lakh rows, it will take longer time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? To construct
sir,
that
yes.
particular person, it will take more than 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right?
Yes.
Same case will happen, in this table variable also, guys. Even though we have enough resources, right? Still, it will allocate, only few CP cost and subtree cost to fetch the single row, because it will consider it is as a variable. That's why the estimations are not proper in this table variable case. That is one of the other reason why we'll go for very less number of to store the very less number of records. Okay. So if you ask me, sir, maybe in the interview also people used to ask, like, in case of table variable, on which case you'll go for table variable, and how many, in case of how many columns, how many rows, they'll ask. They will specifically, can you please mute? Yeah, they will specifically ask how many number of rows, how many number of columns. You need not to specify that. Okay, you need not to specify that. If at all they'll forcibly ask, like, in which scenario go for table variable, means tell them, like, if there are 2 columns, some 100 rows or 10 rows, 20 rows, 30 rows, or 3 columns with some 100 or 150 rows, then I used to prefer table variable. But if it is more than that, then I used to go for temporary tables. Okay, likewise you can explain. Understand?
Yes.
1 or 2 columns with some 100 rows, 200 rows, I'll prefer a table variable. Okay.
Yes,
So if it is, if I feel if it is more, means that some 10 columns with some 100 rows, 200 rows, definitely I'll prefer a temporary table. Okay,
Okay, sir.
that's how you need to explain, guys. Clear?
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Even what I used to prefer, na, if it is a single column with some 10-20 rows, no, I'll prefer table variable. In such a case, it's very, very fast actually, because everything will happen in the memory, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's why I used to prefer. Okay, na? So you no need to tell the count and all, guys, here. Even though they'll ask multiple times, just give them these where I have used. And the reason behind that is you can explain that, the proper because of the proper estimations in temporary table, I'll go for large amount. So, and in this there is no proper estimation, so that I'll go for less amount of data. Clear?
Yeah.
Sir, one doubt.
Yes, please.
Just now we have told like in a temporary table, we can create some hundreds of tables, but it will take it as only one table, right?
Sorry?
Not one row.
Table
Okay.
variable, or you're talking temporary table?
Table variable, sir.
Yeah, table variable, tell me.
Like there is 100 rows means it will take it as a one row.
Yeah, I see it will store 100 rows, okay?
Okay.
It will store 100 rows, but when you do select star from table name, right?
Okay.
What SQL server will assume that? So the storage location, I mean, it will assume that it is a variable and there is only one row present in the table. Okay. And the SQL server will allocate memory only to retrieve one row, but actual number of rows present in the table will be 100, right?
Yes, sir.
So if it is allocating very less memory, okay, so it will take a lot of time to fetch that 100 rows, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
That's how it will be. It cannot predict how many rows exactly present in the table. It will always think that it is a one row.
Here in this case, that in that one row only, the entire data they're going to dump
Right.
it.
Sorry?
So in that table variable case, that entire 100 rows, they are going to dump it in that one row in that
No,
memory
not
allocation.
like that. See, 100 rows will dump it into 100 rows only in the back end, in the memory level. Okay. But while fetching, right? See, it is allocating, let's say 0.1% of CPU cost. Okay.
Okay.
To fetch one row. Now that 0.1% cost, it will take 10 minutes to fetch it. Okay.
Okay.
10 minutes to fetch it. If in the case of temporary tables, right? If there are 100 rows, it will allocate 10% of the CPU cost because it knows it there are 100 rows. Okay. So within a fraction of seconds, it will fetch it because it is giving enough cost, right?
Correct.
Yes, that's how it will be.
In case of temporary tables, it can easily calculate and provide the
Exactly.
output.
That's
Whereas,
what. Okay. So estimation
temporary
means it can easily calculate how much is required, all the memories, costs and all, how much it is required. It can calculate easily. And based upon that, it can fetch the data very fastly. Okay. But in this case, even though there are number of records, it will calculate only for single row.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. But when you actually fetch it, then it will understand, okay, it's not one row, it is more than one row, but still it won't allocate. Okay. Whatever allocated memory is there, with that only it will try to retrieve the whole data. So which will take longer time actually. Yeah. Any other questions? It's very, very important, guys. Okay. So in, see, nowadays it is happening Skype or telephonic interviews sometimes, right? So if it is a Skype rounds, so my suggestion would be you try to share the screen and, draw the picture like this and explain to them. Because obviously we can kill some time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's one thing. And we can easily explain. If you're not very good at communication skills, at least you can draw the tables and with the technical keywords, you can easily explain. You have enough time to frame the sentence, everything. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But before explaining, you can ask them, okay, can I share my screen and explain this concept? Understand?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. but make it clear. Whenever you explain, let it be time taking process. Okay, it will take little bit time, right, to draw all the pictures and all. Let it be, there is no problem, but still you can aram say draw all the things, and you can explain neatly. Because what will happen in sometimes within a single question also they will satisfy. They will not go for the further questions actually. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, in the telephonic you can understand. Okay, in 1 or 2 interviews, right? Within 2 questions only he has selected actually. Just two questions, that's it. Okay. So
Okay,
here it's not required to answer all the questions in the interview. Even if you can give 4 or 5 questions properly, that is more than enough. Okay na? మీరు explain చేసే కాన్సెప్ట్ కాన్ఫిడెంట్ గా ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయాల. Even if it is 1 or 2 answers also fine.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's how it will be. Any other questions?
Sir, here how rollback command will work?
Where?
Because in table variable and
No,
also
in table variable transactions, I don't think so it will work. Okay. So can you please try it and let me know?
I guess no, because it is single execution and after
Yes.
that it will go.
Correct. It won't be there, right? So you cannot roll back it, right?
Because you told only DDL commands we will not
Correct.
perform on them. So TCL
Yes.
also we won't perform.
No, TCL also, yes, exactly. TCL also we cannot perform. You try and then you can write down that point. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So I want you guys to frame a questions. I mean, this is the topic I have explained, right? You just write by the notes by yourself. Okay.
Yes.
Or someone can prepare and share it across in the groups so that people will write it. So whatever I explained, you write down point by point, and then you can share it in the group. Clear? And if any corrections are there, I will tell you. Understand?
Okay.
Yeah. And leave some gap for these differences, guys. So I mean, again, so what is this estimations? What is this CPU input output cost and all? Ramesh will clearly explain to you, because those are the back end concepts actually. Okay, he is very good at the back end concepts, so he'll explain to you. So just leave some 3 to 4 points gap. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So any other questions on top of it?
Sir, if we, in table variables, the memory size is more, means if it
See,
stores.
even though it is a 16 GB, right? It cannot allocate everything to you to store this table variable. Okay.
Okay.
It will allocate a minimal memory to your to store that table variable information. Because see, if it is 16 GB, whenever they're installing 16 GB, because of there is a lot of work ongoing in that particular server, right?
Yes, sir.
Because of such reason, they are allocating it. It's not for your temporary table. Sorry, your table variable. Okay. Very, very minimum memory they will maintain. It will allocate for us. That we cannot predict how much. It depends, guys. It depends means, see, maybe sometimes so many people are working. Okay. So in such a case, your memory consumption is very high, right? In such a case, it can allocate very less amount of memory for us. Okay. Sometimes only few people are working. In such a case, it can grant little bit more. Okay na?
Okay.
It depends on the situations, how the system is busy.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any further questions? Can you respond? So if everyone understand clearly.
No,
We
sir.
are good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you respond in the chat window, please? Because it's a very important question. Okay na? దీనికి కూడా any number of stars you can put, and it's a fixed question like your self join. Okay, then we are good. See, నేను మళ్ళీ అడిగినప్పుడు చెప్పకపోతే మనకు ఖచ్చితంగా తిడతానండి. maybe after a 10 days or 20 days, if I'll go and ask these questions, I want you to explain, okay, clearly.
Yes.
Okay, na? Those who are unable to explain, right, in the interview, try to write down now only, okay, all the points, whatever I clearly explained, okay. And whenever the telephonic Skypes are happening, maybe in the telephonic interviews, at least you can see that points. If you miss something, right, you can see the points, you can tell them. Okay, na? అలా అని చెప్పి చదివేయకూడదు ఇంటర్వ్యూలో. ఓకే, yeah. Okay, I'll just save this and I'll just forward this picture to you. Okay. Okay, and the difference between temporary table, table variable, when you explain now, don't go for again from top to bottom, go for bottom to top. So you draw these pictures and explain all these concepts, then go for the remaining points. Okay, understand?
Yes.
Bottom to top you have to go, not from top to bottom. Where we use in the real time. See, that's what even that I'm saying. So in real time, in case of this store process, this table variable come over there. I'll explain to you in such a case. Okay, there are some situations where we'll store some 5-10 rows or 3 rows, 4 rows and all. In such case, this table variable will be help us actually. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so I'll show you that. Yeah, and one more thing I forgot to tell. Select star into will not work for this step to store the data into a temporary this table variable. So this one won't work for your table variable, guys. Select star into at the rate of table variable name from table, it won't work actually. Why? Because see, to declare this table variable, definitely we require a declare statement, correct? Understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this select star into won't work for the table variable. Okay, now if you ask me, so then how to dump the data from physical table to your table variable? Okay, there is an option, I'll show you. First of all, you need to declare the table, that's for sure. Let me show you. Oh, there are so many columns in this. Okay, fine. So first declare a table variable, declare at the rate of table variable name. I think this table is already okay. This is a table variable anyway, no issues. Yeah. So declare at the rate of table variable. First you need to declare it, guys. Okay. Now we cannot do select star here. Okay. So what is the option you need to do when we have an existing table? Let me write it. Syntax to transfer the data when they into an existing table, which means table is already created, and if you want to dump the data into that table, right? So this is the syntax you need to use. Insert into destination table, select star from source. It's not only for table variable, guys, even for physical tables, temporary tables also same thing. Okay, if it is already existing structure is there, then you can use this syntax. Okay, so for an example, insert into, see this table declaration will be there now. So now you can write this table name and select star from, let me see if there is any data in this table, physical table. Can we have a data? Now when you select this complete declare statement along with insert plus select, see this is insert plus select, guys. Okay, when you execute these two statements at a time, what it will do is, first it will select all the data and it will send it into this table. It won't display to you. Okay, so let me show you. Can you see 18 rows are affected, which means that there is a data inserted over here, correct? So let me write a select statement on top of a table variable and we'll see whether really the data has been inserted into the table or not. Can you see this? In my table variable, the data is there, correct?
Yes.
So these are we can insert the data when we declare a table variable, guys. Okay. Case for a temporary table also. Let's say if I create a table with a temporary table, the syntax would be create table name, right? So already structure is there. Means table has been created. What is this? Create table name. Column parameter variable cannot find the data ID flag. Okay. It's 17 line number. Oh, okay. That's fine. I'll just make it as home. Okay. Even I haven't used this flag data types and all. There are so many data types actually. Cannot find.
The 10th line.
You can remove the flag.
Hierarchy, 10th line.
One. This one. Now let me see why it's not taken. Okay, the table has been created. Now the table is already exist, right? In that case, select star into won't work, correct? Why? Because the table won't, it's already exist, right? Let me show you. If you go and see, already table is there. If you go and run, select star into hash table, and from this it will throw an error, guys, because this table is already exist, right?
Yes, sir.
So this syntax will work only if the table is not exist, new table, because in the execution time it will get created newly, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if the table structure is already exist, you need to use below syntax to insert the data from one object to another object. You see, insert into table name, select star from this. Now you can see 18 rows are inserted into my temporary tables also. Now here is the data. One thing you need to remember here is the structure between this and this should be same. Okay.
Yes.
Or if you want to insert a specific columns, yes, there is an option. You can put the column names here. Business entity ID, command login ID. If you want to keep only few columns, right? Yes, that is possible. Okay. But how many number of columns you have mentioned in the column list after the table name? The same number of columns also you should mention
Select
in the select also. Yes, this is the one important thing you need to know. One is with the star. If the structures are same, there is no problem. Structure should be same and the corresponding data type also same, guys. So select star. Okay. You can use either this one for dumping all the columns, all the rows, and this will be used to dump the specific data for a specific columns. Clear? This syntax is for what? To dump the data into an existing table, correct? Understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you please write down? I'll just, you no need to create these many columns, okay? Just create some 2 to 3 columns. That's more than enough. And here you can just say insert into this at the rate. Don't create temporary table, go with the table variable. Select star into this and then select at rate of. Understand everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if the table is already exist, this is the syntax you need to use to dump the data from one table to another table. Insert plus select. Okay. So if the table is not exist, then you should go for which one?
Select star into.
Select star into, exactly. I'll write that also. Okay, in the below. Syntax to transfer data into non-existing table, correct? So it will be select star into destination table, or I can just say new table. New table from, do remember it. These are very, very important in real time. Okay. Finished? Finished?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Sir, in this we have to select this declare statement in single execution batch, right?
Yes, yes.
From
This,
year
all
to
the
year.
statements should be single execution.
And in case of temporary table, just you can
Execute
say,
separately.
okay.
Done?
Yes, sir. Done, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. The Windows functions today, we do not have much time. Okay, so you just practice these things. Yeah, please write down the notes for the temporary tables, table variables, which I explained, and share it in the groups. Okay, okay then. Bye bye.
Bye, sir.
Okay.
Bye, sir.